Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm just going to double check that I can see we are on Facebook. I believe we are. Good morning, Monica. Hello, darling. Hi, hi.
Morning.
Janet's here as well. Good morning. So, Gia, if you make sure it's on speaker view only for me. Hey, Janet. Maybe I need to change mine. There we go. Good morning. Thank you so much for being with me. I am so excited to be kicking off the second series of the Reconnection Revolution. So welcome and thank you for being with us. If you are in the Facebook group, please be mindful that I can't see your comments. I can't actually see who's here. We're streaming in. If you would like to be with us on Zoom, the invitation is there. You will find a link, Gia, if you make sure there's a link there for people to pop into the Zoom room to be with us. Kim will be with us at 10 o'clock. So what I want to do first is just set us up for this second series. We started with the Reconnection Revolution. Series 1 was all about reconnecting to the most authentic, highest expression of who we are. And I feel it is super important to understand this bit first, because in reconnecting to the most authentic version of ourselves, we become more confident in our connection with other people. In our schooling and through our younger developmental years, we are really conditioned to look for permission in other people about who we should be. We take on layers and layers and layers of messaging about what makes us valuable, what makes us worthy or unworthy. And it becomes a bit of a sliding scale that we take on. And if we stay in that way of thinking, looking to other people to give us permission to belong, we can stay in a place where we just want to perhaps hide, hold ourselves back, and not be really showing up in the most authentic expression of ourselves. And it is in that divinely most authentic expression of ourselves that we are, hi Min, that we are connecting most authentically with other people. It's where we get to shed the idea that somehow our fellow humans are either of greater or lesser value than ourselves. So this becomes a taking back our humanity conversation. There has been a lot of dehumanizing language that we have been trained to use and to think about. And so as we move through this reconnection to others, it is in essence remembering our humanity. And our humanity is what connects us with all other human beings. It's this idea of being the individual in the crowd, and we take care of us. It becomes an I conversation that has disconnected us from other people. So when we start to think about we and us, that is the first step in us reconnecting. And in the Western world, we have been so strongly indoctrinated to talk about I. So as we move into this reconnection to others, I want everybody and encourage everybody to start thinking about we and us. And we get to take back our humanity and to start seeing the humanity again in our fellow human beings. So I want to share a little story that I'm always fascinated by, the things that stick in my mind and how they become the seemingly incidental moments become profound teaching moments. And I was lucky enough in my early 20s to go to Africa with my big sister, Melissa, and we traveled. We were in South Africa, and we went to Zimbabwe, and we went on various different safaris. And I never forget, there was a moment where we were about to go out on safari. We'd been staying in this beautiful sort of glamping accommodation with a group of other people, and one of the groups that we'd connected with had gone before us, and we were going on the next bus out. And as they came back, I said to one of the guys that we'd been sharing our accommodation with, you know, what did you see? How was it? And he sort of rolled his eyes and he said, oh, we saw more zebra. Seen one, seen them all. Seen one, seen them all. Now, it struck me like it was one of those moments that landed in my brain in a way that was a teaching moment that I have brought up time and time and time again. And I would really love you to think about when you've seen zebras. Seen one, seen them all. There are no two zebras that have the same stripes. They're all different. They're all different. And as human beings, we have in the Western world, it's different in Asia, in Asian countries. In the Western world, we have started to see human beings like that guy was seeing zebras. And on social media, we are worse at this than ever. We do it in real life as well. But on social media, it has become heightened. And as part of this conversation, I want to encourage us to reconnect to our humanity and to start seeing the human again. So as you scroll through social media, as you look at the other people on this Zoom call, as you look at the other people who are tuning in with you on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you happen to be, and you just see a little photo, a little round photo, or those of us on Zoom can see each other's faces, I want to encourage you to start seeing the human again. Because it's in our humanity that we are showing up with the uncertainty, the vulnerability, the desire to feel seen and heard, the desire to never be dismissed or discarded or undervalued for who we are. And if we're going to live by that amazing golden rule to treat other people as we want to be treated, it starts with this. It starts with seeing our fellow human beings not as the zebra that, you know, seen one, seen them all. It starts with acknowledging our fellow human beings. If you were standing in front of a fellow human being, you would never ignore a message. You would never ignore the offering of a heart or a like or a comment. You would never stand outside the screen door of somebody's house watching and listening without offering a good morning or hello, or, you know, on social media, it's the thumb or the heart or the acknowledgement of a human reaching out to connect, sharing their heart, sharing their vulnerability, risking rejection, risking uncertainty, risking being dismissed. And yet we're looking at our fellow human beings on social media as if they're the zebra. Seen one, seen them all. It's going to take some shifting. It's going to take a change in how we use social media. And I believe when we do set this intention, the ripple effect in real life, the ripple effects of how you look at humans, how you look at the human who is serving you at the supermarket, how you look at the human that you bought your shoes from, how you look at the human that you walk past on a morning walk, and actually see the human. See the human that's packing shelves at the supermarket. See the human who is the naturopath or the doctor in front of you. See the people that you follow on social media and think, if I don't want to interact with this person, if I don't want to acknowledge the humanity of this person, why am I looking? Why am I watching? What is that? Without making it right or wrong, good or bad, just be curious with yourself and your humanity and your connection with other people. Open your heart to the human on the other side of the screen, and you will start to open your heart more to the people in real life. This gets to be almost like a training ground to learn about human connection again. If we stay in this voyeuristic way of treating our fellow humans, it's like we watch the people that we want to disagree with. We watch the people that have been in a car accident on the news, just change channels, forget about it 2 seconds later. So as you think about the vulnerability that it takes for you to show up and connect with a different person, somebody you know, somebody you don't know, think about the courage it takes, the vulnerability to show up in a new space. And offer your fellow human the compassion that you would like to receive. Pull up the chair for somebody else. Hi, Liz. It's lovely to have you with us. As you see somebody's name that you know on social media, say good morning, say hello. And if you wouldn't say hello, why are you following them? Why are you watching? Just from a place of curiosity. Because I think that, well, I know that social media is doing an awesome job of feeding the dehumanization of our fellow human beings. And sadly, we're unwittingly feeding that great dehumanizing machine. But we can change it. We can change it. I feel one of the conversations that is most powerful when thinking about how we reconnect with our humanity and with our fellow human beings, it is this understanding. We are all products of our environment. So what does that mean? Everybody was born into a culture, into a family, into a community that had values, that had ideas about what was right and wrong. And as a baby, as a small child, you start to absorb those values, those ideas. What's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, what's valuable. There are people that have grown up in families where people are shamed and dismissed, and there is a sense that they are an embarrassment to their families because they didn't get certain accolades at school, academic achievements or sporting achievements, and it shifts how people see themselves and their value in society. There are families that hold strong religious beliefs. There are families that have grown up in families where racism is the norm, and there's a fear of people with a different colored skin. There are people that have grown up in families where smacking children is the norm. It's understood, it's effective. There are people that have grown up in families where nobody goes to university and everybody does a trade, and that is praised. And people that go to university, it's a waste of time and they think they're better than everybody else. Good morning, Joyce. There are people that have grown up in societies where if you don't barrack for a football team and watch a football team, you're un-Victorian or you're un-Australian or you're, there's people that have grown up in families where if you don't vote for a particular political party, then you're either with us or against us. We all have these different belief systems that are planted in us, these different behaviors, these different operating systems. Women are seen as this and that, men are seen as this and that, right and wrong, good and bad. Cultures, whole cultures, we see through a lens of the environment that we grew up in. And we get to stop shaming and making people wrong for seeing things differently. We know what we know because of the environment that we've been in. We know what we know. We believe what we believe because of the environment that we've been raised in. And we are so good at being super opinionated about what is right and wrong for other people. In the Western world, we can look at cultures where girls get married off into arranged marriages at 16, 17, and shun a whole culture as wrong without having lived in it, without really knowing. We have opinions about what's right and wrong for Aboriginal people without talking to Aboriginal people about what's right or wrong for them. There are so many examples of this. As human beings, we are meaning-making machines. We're marvelous at it. Everything is actually neutral. Everything is neutral. We apply a meaning to it because of the environment that we've grown up in, what we've been exposed to. I've used the example before, and I'll just share this very briefly before I ask Kim to join us. I've used the example before of 9/11, and it's a powerful memory for me because my second daughter, Zoe, was due that day. And I remember waking up in the morning, hearing the news and just holding my belly. I was like, you cannot be born today. You cannot be born today. My precious baby, you are not coming into the world today. Your birthday will not be associated with this day. And so I hung on to her for another 2 days. It's 9/11 today, folks. So my beautiful daughter Zoe will be 22 on Wednesday. I hung on to her for another 2 days. There were people on this planet, if the event is neutral, people on this planet who thought it was a good thing. America needed a wake-up call. They're arrogant. They're destroying the world with their cheap junk values. And there are people on this planet who thought it was the most horrific, devastating thing. Environment. And people that grow up in the cultures where that is the answer, is violence. It's a sobering thought when we look at people in jail, or we look at people that commit crimes, or we look at people that take drugs, or we look at people that are shopaholics or have all sorts of different addictions, food addictions, pornography addictions, social media addictions, shopping addictions. And as we judge people for these different things, we get to look at it through a veil of two different filters. One is that it is a consequence of an environment that we are in. And as we look to solve the epidemic of loneliness, mindlessness, disconnection, anxiety, and depression that is sweeping across the Western world, we get to look at it and the people around us and look at the environment that is causing this. It's not an individual problem. It is not a biological problem. It is the consequence of disconnection from the things that matter most. Disconnection from tribe, from community, disconnection from the natural world, disconnection from spirit, whatever that is for you. So when we think about connecting with our fellow human beings, I invite you to remember your humanity. So we have with us today the very gorgeous, the very fabulous Kim Morrison. Kim, thank you so much for being with us again, honey.
Oh, such a pleasure. Thank you for that.
So I know that we have done so many interviews together. There is a very good chance that the vast majority of people on this, tuning into this today, know who you are, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to do today is look at how, continuing this thread of remembering our humanity, it's looking at how we operate from different perspectives, through different filters. So I wonder if we start this conversation through the lens of womanhood, Kim, because I feel that part of our reluctance to show up in our most authentic way and connect with other women is this constant checking in of, are we good enough? Am I wearing the right clothes? Have I got the right qualifications? What will they think of me? It's this desire to connect, but we're hesitating. So in all the hundreds of women that you've supported with this conversation, how are you helping women to reconnect with other women again?
I think first and foremost, even things like this are the most important thing that we could actually become a part of. And I think as the world becomes more wired and more technically connected, the more wired and disconnected we seem to become. And so I guess it's really, if you feel a heart space or a void that's not being filled, or if you feel like you're spending most of your time comparing yourself to others, or if you feel like you just don't know what you're doing anymore or what you should be doing, they're just beautiful cues in order for you to check out something new or do something different. Because we all know that good old saying, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always got. So it's never about the universe, technology, other people, modernization. They're all the external factors. What truly matters is, what do you bring to society? What are you willing to show up as? Who do you want to present yourself to the world as? And if we wake up each day thinking we have a clean slate, or we have the opportunity to present ourselves in a new way, even if that's the same way, just even better, and we keep polishing that beautiful side of us, then we end up showing the world that we give ourselves permission to be us, and we give everyone else permission to do the same. And so I guess really what's challenging is it is natural for humans to judge and to look at others and compare. And they're survival strategies. They're actually inbred survival strategies so that we stay on top of our game to survive, because ultimately the weak and the injured were the ones that would perish in times gone by. Yeah. So if we saw in our tribal days, it was natural to get out there and walk 50 Ks a day, or, hunt and kill or gather and do all of these things, and we worked better synergistically. That's really what comes about from history, is that there is a symbiotic, synergistic response when we work with others or present ourselves to others. And why I love that so much is because when you look at essential oils, one of my loves, when we blend one oil with another oil, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. Actually, the synergistic effect becomes greater than the sum of 2. And they estimate that 1 + 1 in the aromatherapy world actually equals 9. I would say the same for humankind. I would say when we reach out to somebody, when we do an act of kindness, and even more amazing, doing it for the people we love that irritate us, doing it for the people that, rile us up the wrong way, realizing that you're never, ever going to get along with everybody. Yeah. And you're never, ever going to appeal to everybody, because we all have different temperaments and we all have different viewpoints on how we see the world. Yeah. And I guess why I love this connection conversation, and more importantly, reconnection, is that the more we know who we are, the more we open up all those beautiful abilities to connect and travel this world with people that really matter. And sometimes those people can be strangers.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening to, it was a conversation with an Amish man who said that he was talking about community, and it was, if you take this synergy of working together, if you take a coal out of a fireplace and put it separately, it'll go cold really quickly. Whereas if the coal is surrounded by other coals, then it keeps the fire going. And I think that that's exactly what we're seeing in humanity, is this isolation of people. And
I think we have to remember, though, sometimes to elevate, we have to isolate. In order to actually elevate our souls and our spirits, we do need to isolate sometimes. We do need to go within or take time out. Yeah. But that's not the number one reason humans were put on this planet. We were not put on this planet to survive individualistically. And if you go back in time, tribe man, originally when he was out there hunter-gathering and doing it all himself, it took a lot of energy, lifespans were lower, risks were higher. When we came together and evolved into what they call level 2 was when we became more tribal focused, and we realized we worked together better individually. And I think together. And I think humans go through a dance of individuality and then togetherness and individual. So I do think it's a wave and a dance. And in fact, to evolve, we have to get self-centered and self-focused sometimes. And then to really practice that evolvement is when we come back into the community. So never underestimate it. The only challenge I have is sometimes, and I'm sure many of us will agree with this, if we are in a bit of a low point in our lives, or we are being challenged or triggered by external circumstances or people, it's very easy to withdraw. And then the more we withdraw, the more we kind of find ourselves in our own pity party. Yeah. And I always say it's okay. You have to feel it to heal it. You've got to work yourself in your way. There's no time limit on grief or loss or change or transformation. There is no time. But the real cue and key is to stay active and participatory with intention. So even if you are having some time out by yourself, I'm just replenishing, or I really appreciate you reaching out. I'm just give me 72 hours and I'll come up for air in the next few days. Or could you talk to my best friend or my partner about this just while I traverse my way through this? I'm not abandoning everybody. I just need to recalibrate, re-energize, and refuel. And I think that is okay too.
Yeah, and I mean, that the difference between that sort of introverted and extroverted personality style, I need my alone time to re-energize, where I know my youngest son absolutely gets energy from other people. He's the extrovert. So it's understanding our own operating styles is part of this picture. So let's dive in there. What are the different operating styles and how do you teach them, Kim?
Well, I think everyone has probably heard of many different things like DISC, Myers-Briggs, there's the generator, manifestor, human design, there's astrology. There's so many different ways to look at it. But when I've gone through all my research, what I've noticed is that they all came off one model, and that was from Hippocrates some 2,500 years ago, based on the 4 temperament personalities. And for those of you that have seen me present this, I invite you to just hear it in a way of now really trying to picture and understand the different people in your lives and why they're there. Yeah. So we have our beautiful, what's called our cholerics. Our cholerics, another word for that is powerful. These powerful types, it's actually the least popular of all the types, as in the least number of these people. But that's probably not a bad thing, because they're a force to be reckoned with. They enter the room, their energy enters the room before anyone else, even them. They have a very strong presence. They have a coat of armor that represents confidence. Even if they're not feeling it, they will not let themselves down, and they will not show weakness, because weakness to them is, whilst for many of us, weakness is also vulnerability and opening up. Weakness to a choleric or a powerful personality type is true weakness, and it's very hard for them to crack open that. So as I talk about these types, just think about the different people in your world, and instead of judging them and thinking, oh, they're such a hard ass, or, oh, I can't get through them, or they're always angry or on a mission, or they never have time. If you could understand this type, they feel they're on this planet to get shit done. They are here to make things happen. They are leaders. They are incredible. They love a sense of control. They thrive on creativity and new ideas and taking a bull by the horns. They are incredibly charismatic, and you just can't help but be drawn into their energy, but you don't want to cross them either. And sometimes it's hard to get through to them because they don't like to be told things necessarily. And again, these are generalized statements. The more evolved we become, the better we understand our constraints within each type. But the powerful type also really, how they control the world is through anger or a threat of anger. So those of you that are parents, you may, and if you are one of these or know someone who is one of these, you may have controlled by saying things like, 1, 2, so help me God, you do not want to see 3. So these types, they threaten to get angry, they will follow through, but they are also incredibly dynamic. They have their fingers in a whole lot of different pans. They have a lot of things on the go, and their absolute desire in life is to get things done, to make things happen. They are the doers of the personality type. Yeah. Then we have their opposite, which is the phlegmatic or the peacefuls. Now, these beautiful souls, don't underestimate them just because they're the most quiet out of all 4 types. They're also the most stubborn. They can kind of dig their heels in. They're not willing to change. They'll act like they're going to change because they're also the peacemakers, hence the word peaceful. They don't like conflict, so they'll do whatever it takes to make things work. But if they see some sort of conflict going on, they'll sit back and observe and watch. And then when the fight's over or the conflict's over, they'll just join the winning side and go, yeah. And so they do it, everything's done quietly, but they also have to do it in their time. And their time is usually way slower than the other three types. So what's fascinating about these guys is they are wonderful peacemakers. They are incredible listeners. They really value humanity. They're the types that probably they'll pick up the rubbish off the ground, or they'll notice the injured animal, or they can't watch the news because it's too doom and gloom for them. So they do feel a lot. They are very feelers, and they just want everyone to be happy. Peace, love, and eat vegetables would probably be a great motive of theirs, where they just want the world to get along. But as I said, their stubbornness also means that they are not averse to conflict. They just do it in a very quiet, dig their heels in. You've heard that saying, the iron fist in the velvet glove. Yeah. That is our peacefuls. So again, their constraints are they can be seen to be lazy. They can be seen to be a bit subservient. They can be seen to be walked all over. But they'll act like that in order to get what they need and want. So they're very clever at manipulating the situation to suit their needs, which is very chill. One of their favorite words is chill. If you ever hear them say, just take a chill, but wait, relax, take it easy. They're their favorite kind of words. Whereas powerfuls, cholerics, well, come on, let's do it. What are we going to do about this? Where are we going to get this done? How soon are we going to get this done? You just listen to their languaging and you'll really hear it. And then there's our beautiful playfuls, our sanguines. These are the most common of the 4 personality types. They are the talkers. They're enthusiastic. They're very optimistic. They're positive. They love people. They fuel off people. They get lifted by their energy. They are the people that walk into a room and go, that's enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me? They've got this very center of attention way of approaching life, but they're very charismatic as well. It's easy to fall in love with them. They just make the world smile and a happy place. If they go down and they get upset or depressed, and often they're the ones that are overlooked for this because they usually do have such a high, happy disposition that we don't notice when they go down, and they'll put on a brave face because they do not like to be down. They find it very challenging, just like a powerful doesn't like not to have control. And a peaceful doesn't like to not have rest. These people do not like to feel down. So they'll sometimes mask it and you'll think they're okay and the world ticks on. But one of their greatest needs is to have affection and attention. They need to know that you're thinking of them just in a text, or letting them know in a message that you are thinking of them. They were also the ones at school that probably got in their reports would do better if they didn't talk so much or play up so much. They often get diagnosed, in my humble opinion, misdiagnosed as ADD or ADHD. And that's because they get bored easily. They love an element of surprise. They love spontaneity, but that of course makes them late. And that of course makes them seem a bit airheady at times, or that they're not really grounded because they get very distracted by bright, shiny object syndrome. So, but that's what makes them so alluring and endearing. So that's our beautiful sanguines, our play.
Oh, I think Kim's just frozen. I'll give it a minute. Hopefully she'll come back on.
And then the opposite.
Oh, give it a minute.
Of them. Can you hear me now?
There we are. You're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I think I got up to the precises. Is that right?
Yeah. So you were just saying the opposite of, so the opposite of the sanguine.
Opposite of the sanguine is the precise, the melancholic. Now, they are melancholic for a reason. They do tend to dwell on the past. They do tend to remember things from the past. Very, very sensitive souls, quite intuitive, but also hate getting it wrong. So from their perspective, they can end up with paralysis by analysis because they're trying so hard to make everything okay. They're trying really hard to make sure, well, not even okay, it's got to be perfect, and it's got to be perfectly perfect, which is why they can get very hard on themselves and others, or they'll get very anal and pedantic. Yeah. So it's really important to know that this type just needs order and structure, and they love spreadsheets and ticks and charts and times, and they're very, very process orientated. Yeah. They love to know how it's all working. And the thing to remember about that is we wouldn't be a great society without this type, because this type, these are your surgeons, your bookkeepers. These are the ones that notice all the dots and the T's being crossed and the I's being dotted. They notice imperfections very quickly. And we love that about this type. The constraint or the weakness side of that is if they take it too far, you'll always feel like you can never get it right with this type because it's never quite good enough. Or they'll make comments like, it's good, but I think you could have done a bit better. And they don't mean to be awful about it. They just see even more potential in you. They see more in the world. But of course, that comes at a price. They think that the rest of the world is up against them at times because people are late or they share too much information. Precisers don't like surprises. They don't like to be caught off guard because to them, they've got to be organized and ready. So they're beautiful types, unbelievable. Usually hairspray is one of their favorite things because everything will look right. You do not show up at a Preciser's unannounced.
Yeah.
You don't knock on the door and say, hey, I thought I'd drop in. Drop-ins to a Precise is so rude. That is so not external considering or thinking about them. They find that very intrusive because what if the house isn't right? What if they aren't right? And again, it's not that superficial that it's like, oh, your house isn't right. It's just what's important to them. And the rest of us could look at that and go, oh, it's ridiculous. It's pathetic. I don't care about your house. But if you can't see the world through their eyes, you will think it is pathetic and useless. But if you understood it through their eyes, you would respect that that's just the way they view the world. And for them to operate at their best, they like to have things in order. So I guess that's a very beautiful way within each type. There's an introvert and an extrovert. And there's a thing called masking where we can actually become our opposite when pushed too far. But I love it because it's very insightful. It's also fun. And what I love most about this work is it gives us an opportunity to laugh at ourselves and to actually see ourselves with a sense of humor rather than judging ourselves so harshly and critically and others.
Yeah, it's interesting. As I was listening to you, particularly describing the choleric, it sounds like a really masculine way of operating. If we think about, I'm not talking about male, female, I'm talking about that masculine, really doing, driven versus the more feminine. It's finding the balance in there. So understanding the most comfortable operating system, but then finding the balance of that within there. So when I learned these different operating systems, the model that I learned, it was supporters, promoters, I've gone blank on it, analyzers, controllers. So the idea of that is that we understand all the different operating systems and we're aiming to kind of reach a middle point. So we find comfort in all four different ones. Is that a similar way that you address this, or?
Well, I think if we can understand that our temperament is pretty much what we're genetically born with, and scientists believe that up to 60% of that is genetic, then epigenetics, our environment, our situation, can frame and mold our personality. But the ultimate thing in personality is that we can become all four. I mean, I don't like doing tax returns, but I can do it. But it just takes more brain power and more energy for me to do the tasks that aren't natural for me. Whereas for someone who loves doing figures and numbers and tax returns, they would find it even more harder, or more energy would be required to get up and speak impromptuously in front of people. Not saying that we can't do any of these things. It's just that we know from a brain apparatus modem, it takes more energy to do the things that we're not natural at. And that makes sense. But yes, what you're saying before about coming into the middle of all four types, obviously the closer we get to universal spirit, source, God, Buddha, Abdullah, whatever it is you want to call that, there is no judgment, there is no boxing, there is no framework. You just are, and you're a living expression of all of those types. What is powerful in this work is I haven't yet met someone that sits in that space. I've met people that get close to it, but I think ultimately when we see people stressed, and this is when the real temperaments and personalities come out, is when we're stressed. Because when we're in a great place, we can live life quite happily and we go about our life and other people don't seem to trigger us or rub us up the wrong way. But if we ourselves are not in a good place, if we're not very connected to self and aware of self, then why did that person cut me off in traffic? Instead of thinking, oh, maybe they could be in a rush, a child's just fallen off a jungle gym, maybe their husband's needing them, whatever. We look at them and want to stick our fingers out the window and abuse them because they've just cut us off in traffic.
Yeah.
So it's really understanding that we all have constraints, but if we can see that we see the world through a certain framework or modem, we get to understand other people are different, not wrong.
Yeah. I had an interesting experience earlier this year with introduced to human design for the first time, and it's
Powerful.
fascinating because when I went through my own profile, there was a little bit of an eye roll moment going on. It's like, this is so generic. It's like reading your, horoscopes in the daily paper, because there is an essence of, doesn't everybody think like me? And I wonder if everybody else has the same experience. It's that, but this is just how people think, isn't it? This is just how people make decisions, because that's what I know. And then I did it with one of my closest girlfriends. We share very similar values. We're very different sort of women. But when I did hers, it was like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. Not so generic. Not so generic. It's really, it is such a powerful thing to have language to understand that other people have a very different way of processing.
And a beautiful way of thinking about that is there's a great line: seek to understand before I'm understood. How about we try to understand that person's viewpoint before we bestow ours upon everyone else?
Yeah.
And the biggest problem with communication is that we act and listen in order to reply instead of act and listen to respond to what they're actually saying. So I find it very interesting, communication, and this is where you can't communicate unless you've got someone else. I mean, yes, we can communicate between our own two ears, but it's when we meet other people or we're in a shop or we understand. And I guess the best place, the best place to see these personalities really shine, or these temperaments to come out, is at the airport when a flight's delayed or cancelled. And you just have to sit there and watch all four types come to life.
Yeah.
The first ones up at the counter, of course, are the cholerics, the powerfuls. What do you mean the flight's cancelled? What are you going to do about it? What is going to happen here? And how do you know? I mean, they are very important people. They've got places to go, people to see, and things to do. So get on with it, people. Make it happen. Then the next people there, of course, are the precises. So it's the left. If we put the brain on top of these four squares, the left side is our powerfuls and precises, which is the left brain, which is analytical, sequential, mathematical, organized, all of that logic in that left side, which is a more masculine energy. Is when we look at it from that perspective, the next ones, the precises, have already started working out how they're going to fix this. They've already emailed ahead, or they've messaged somebody, or they're looking at the next available flight. So when they approach the counter, they go, I'd like to be put on this flight, please. And then the next time, the way you actually, the other side of the brain, the right side, the more, I guess, analytical and relationship orientated and more feminine energy, the playfuls, the sanguines, all you have to do is say, look, here's a food voucher or a bar voucher. Please just go and go and hang out. We'll call you when the next flight comes. They're like, sweet, happy.
Yeah. Oh, it's frozen. I'm imagining everybody's listening to this really seeing themselves and the people in their families in it. It's such a fun thing.
Who am I going to meet? How can I drink? Oh. Have I stopped again?
Oh, you're back
now.
You're back. That's
Jesus.
right. No. We get to be in our place.
I don't know this. They've tried to put the girl.
Okay. So the controllers right now are getting frustrated.
Yeah.
The analyzers want to lean in and help you, fix
Can you
this
hear me now?
situation, Kim. They're probably emailing you in the background with solutions.
Can you hear me now? Can you see me now?
Yes, I think we're.
Am I back?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, I completely agree. The powerfuls are going, she should have organised her internet better. I've been on the phone to Telstra for 2.5 weeks, just saying powerfuls.
Oh. Great opportunity to see which operating system is rising in you as you're watching this.
Precisers are going, I would have tested.
Yeah, tested this.
This, oh boy, have I gone out again? No, no.
Oh, I think you're back.
Leave.
I think you're back.
Am I here?
Yes. Oh. Oh, poor Kim. So frustrating. So frustrating.
Jeez. How?
I wonder. We'll give it another second. Hopefully she'll come back in. All good things. Thank you, Janet. That is the perfect thing to say. That's the perfect thing to say. Poor Kim. It's so frustrating. Okay, so maybe if we she's going to go out, she might try and come back in. But this is just such a beautiful opportunity to look at our responses to a situation like this and to notice, you know, does everybody have an idea of, just from listening to that brief snapshot, what your operating style is? Do you feel like you know what it is? You can pop it in the comments if you feel like you know what yours is. I can see, you know, through that model, I can see that I'm actually a blend of a couple. I'm not sure that I fit into one, a peaceful. It's interesting. I knew yours, Monica. What was, hang on, where was playful, precise, Janet? Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm going to imagine that you can actually go in and Google this, and there'll be, I haven't done this actual one that Kim's talking about, but I'm sure there'll be stuff there. The human design is fascinating, and the one that I actually love even more is Gene Keys, but you need to know what time you were born. That's the only thing with human design and Gene Keys. You need to know what time you were born. I actually had to write to the Canberra hospital to find out because I didn't know. So you can, if you don't know, you can write to the hospital to find out. But it is such a powerful thing to have these understandings that we do operate differently. There were those of us that when the great lockdown happened, it was just like, all the introverts were quietly just like, it was a bit of a relief that you have a good excuse to stay fairly quiet and shut yourself in. But then that can bleed through. Oh, Kim, you're back with us. That can bleed through, and this is where it can then become isolation and loneliness that isn't healthy. Kim, I was just talking about looking at the different operating systems. A few people have popped in the comments. They think they know what theirs is. Perhaps if we just finish up with, at the airport, the sanguine and the melancholic. We go back.
Yeah, isn't this fascinating? How's everybody's temperaments being challenged with this?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a classic. The sanguines are happy to go to the bar with their voucher and meet people and wait until that. They love the surprise element. There's nothing they can do, so let's just go and enjoy ourselves. The peacefuls have put their their bag down on the ground, they've put their headphones in, and they're just lying there, and they've set an alarm, hopefully, to wait when the next check-in is. So you will watch personalities around you all the time. The thing to cue for: the way they dress, the way they speak, the way they interact. Watch whether they and how they actually use language. So I can give everyone a copy of my book, Why Can't You Be Normal Like Me? And you can do the test. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I thought, all of a sudden I thought I'm gone again. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
So people can do this, but just remember, this is not about boxing people in. This work is not to be used as a weapon, but rather a tool. So we do not want to go, oh, you're such a powerful, or you're such an anal precise, or you're such an airhead playful, or you're such a boring peaceful. No, it's about seeking to understand before understood. It's about knowing that we're all different, not wrong. Understanding we all have different operating systems and ways in which we view the world. And then the most beautiful thing of all is if we can understand those other three types, our type becomes even more, even better, and even more grand.
Yeah, where it fits into the picture. It's interesting, as I'm listening to it, I see the choleric and the phlegmatic are the masculine. It's like, so when they're at the airport and everything's gone, there's like, I'm going to take charge of this. I'm going to get things done. What can I do to fix this? That's the masculine. And then the sanguine and the melancholic are that I'll just sit back and I trust that you'll take care of me and this will get sorted. I don't need to take charge. That's that feminine and masculine really coming into play. So it's finding, we need both.
Yes.
We need both. We can't, if we're all in this beautiful receiving feminine mode all the time, not much would get done.
So, and we'd exhaust everyone if we're in the masculine energy all the time. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's where, as communities, this comes back to connecting with others. We're not all supposed to do it all. It's when we team up and lock arms and people are operating in the strengths of what they're here to do, that it all works.
And knowing that we can change and evolve, our personality can get better, our temperament pretty much, I believe, will stay the same, but it's how do we make it even grander? And making it grander is often becoming, the real key is self-awareness. So sorry about my pussycat. It is, she's being a playful right now.
Yeah.
That's enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me? Look at her. But yes, it's beautiful work. And I've seen, a lot of parents will have children bring their kids up, particularly if they've got more than one child, same rules, same house, same parents, same lives. And yet their children respond very, very differently. That's how we know it's not just what you're born with. It's actually, it is what you're born with, but it's also, you can't change the essence of that beautiful child. So more importantly, learn how I can speak into their needs. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when any of us are stressed, that's when the true colors come out. So a powerful needs loyalty in the ranks, credit for their accomplishments, and a sense of control. Our peacefuls need to be valued for who they are, not for what they do. They need respect and they want peace and quiet. That's what they need when they're stressed. Our playfuls, our sanguines, they need attention, affection, acceptance, and approval. They need to know that you care, that you're looking out for them. And our beautiful precises, they need space, silence, sensitivity, and support. Now, space does not mean abandonment. Space means I'm here if you need. So when you understand, out of all of this work, that's probably the most important, is understanding our emotional needs when stressed, because we can't hide our personality when we're stressed.
I love this, and I love that I'm dying to get my hands on a copy of that book now. I think it's fascinating. But it is one thing to understand ourselves, but I think the ultimate gift is to be able to understand the people that we live with. When I look at my 4 children, it endlessly just amazes me how different they all are. They all grew up in the same family, all the same environment, all same, and yet they're all so different. It's a fascinating thing to watch as parents with our kids.
The people that we love the most are our greatest teachers.
Yeah.
They will trigger us more than anyone else in society, honestly.
Yeah.
And there is nothing, and then don't forget this, if you're in a relationship, we usually marry our opposite to create that beautiful balance. But also the thing we fell in love with them, the things that we loved about them at the beginning, within 7 years become the things that can drive a wedge between you. So don't underestimate this work, understanding it and realizing it. So for instance, my husband is what we'd call a peaceful precise, and I'm a playful powerful.
Yeah.
So we usually have a secondary personality that comes in behind it. We're not diagonals, but he was that. So he's really what you'd call a basal temperament. So he is glass half empty, tends to see the problem before the outcome. So our precises and our peacefuls, they worry more than anyone else. They've got to understand it's all okay before we go ahead. People could see that as negative. It's not. They're the people we needed in our tribes that were looking out for fear, because the powerfuls were out there conquering, not looking behind them, and the playfuls were having a ball and not seeing the danger. So we need these types in our life. Then the playfuls and the powerfuls, very optimistic, upbeat, tend to have a glass half full.
We'll give it another minute. It's interesting. I was sharing with my mastermind group this exact scenario because my husband Laurie and I are the same.
Attitude. They don't.
The same as Kim and her husband, in that if I see something that I want to make happen, or I make a decision very quickly, and it is that leadership, that driven personality. I just want the decision to be made now. Whereas my husband Laurie is like, I'll just give me, I'll come back to you tomorrow. Let me think about this and I'll come back to you tomorrow. And it's that balance of different, it makes for the perfect balance. Kim, you're back.
This is so good, isn't it? Gosh, I love you all for being so patient. Thank God we've got Edwina, because she can fill the gaps, which is so good. I do apologize. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I've been on the phone to Telstra for 2.5 weeks and they keep telling me there's nothing wrong. So there you go.
So that's right.
I think my powerful's about to kick in though.
Watch out.
I reckon there's a reason why they're called certain names. But anyway,
I think it's given us a beautiful teaching opportunity, Kim. It's absolutely perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So we'll pop a link in so that everyone can get a copy of Kim's beautiful book in the 3 C's community. For those that are in there with us, this is where we are deepening the conversation and continuing to learn and grow in this work. So within that space, if you have questions for Kim, once you've gone through and done your personality, I look forward to everybody sharing what they come up with. And perhaps if we look, what we'll do is we might come up with some scenarios that give us a picture of how we deal with things in different situations, because it just helps us to understand the different operating systems. Maybe we can use the in and outs of this call. It would be fun. It would be fun.
In the book, there is it's just an ebook, but there is things like how to communicate to each type, how they train, how they dress, what they do. So there's a whole lot of information in there that is quite entertaining, hopefully.
So good. So good. And I would love to wind up, if we can stretch it out for another 5 minutes. I feel like there is I started this with talking a bit about how we're connecting on social media. And I'm not sure how much you caught of that, Kim, but I'd love you to share your thoughts. I feel like there gets to be a shift in how we connect on social media, how we use social media to actually create connection. What are your thoughts?
I think the important thing is, first of all, when you're posting stuff, you're either doing it for yourself. So for me, my Instagram page is my diary. And I also realize, with the responsibility of sharing my diary, is there an element where I can teach, share, gift, and give of myself with things I've learned? So there'll be a quote, there'll be a podcast, there'll be shows like this, there'll be beautiful photos, there'll be nature, food, recipes, all the things that are important to me, that I'm not worried if it gets 1 like or 1,000 likes. That's not why I do it. I do it for me.
Yeah.
But ultimately, in sharing, I wouldn't just share anything either. It's not a case of using social media as a platform to vent or to judge or to criticize.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion, it is a beautiful space and place to share information, to honor one another, and to celebrate this thing called connection. So if we use it for anything other than that, again, I think we're then working and using it as a weapon, not a tool.
Yeah.
And I think if we can just look at social media as a beautiful tool, it's not the ultimate in connection, it's not the ultimate in sharing information, but it's one, and it ain't going away. So rather than how do we beat it, how can we join it?
Yeah.
How can we connect in with it? And to me, it's being your most beautiful, authentic self.
Yeah. And I'm, the thing that I feel is going to make the biggest difference in not getting lost in the distraction of it is to use it as a connection tool. So to follow people that we want to be connected with, and to perhaps filter through and not be following so much of the stuff that is just from the word voyeurism comes in, but I feel like there's this great watching people's lives without being connected to it is part of what's feeding the disconnection and the breakdown of humanity. I think as humans, we're not supposed to observe each other in silence.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, actually. And there's so many people that do just, I don't know. People have said to me things like, oh, I see you did a run down in Caloundra the other day. And I go, oh, did you? And I go back and I've actually tested this and I've gone back to see if that person saw it. And there's no like, there's no click, there's no comment.
Yeah.
And a part of me thinks, wow, should I be sharing this information if you're not going to interact with me? But then I remember my reason for doing it isn't to get your interconnection. It's for me and the people closest to me.
Yeah.
So I think it's that real decision on what's your intention with sharing. And then if someone goes to the trouble of writing a post, I love to put a love heart or a comment.
Yeah.
I think it's really beautiful to give feedback.
I think what triggered this conversation in my mind is the conversation that I think it was Johann Hari had about connection. The loneliness is not a conversation about how many people you have around you. It's about the meaningfulness of the connection that you have. So how do we lie in a hospital bed surrounded by people that are taking care of us, but feel lonely? It's because it's a one-way interaction. The person is being cared for, but they're not able to offer anything meaningful in exchange. So it's the meaningful exchange that we have between people that creates connection. So you can go and sit in a huge shopping center or Times Square in New York or somewhere and be surrounded by hundreds or thousands of people and feel desperately lonely. But if you have one person that strikes up a conversation and there's a meaningful interaction between two people, this is where we start to cure the loneliness epidemic. And so I think on social media, where have thousands of people or 50 friends online at the same time, but we're not making the attempt to have a meaningful connection, I believe it's feeding the loneliness that is really causing so much distress for people. So when I am talking about how we're using social media, I really want to encourage people to, if you don't want to have a meaningful connection with the person that you're looking at, perhaps it's not the person to follow. That's my thoughts.
I also think someone said to me once that, and because I've got a personal page and a business page, and on my business page, it's like that someone said to me, treat it like a shop, that you own the shop. Are you going to turn people away? How would you talk to someone that you've just met for the first time? How do you interrelate with people that are customers in your shop? And I've never forgotten that. I always think anyone that follows me, but I actually think of it with me personally, but anyone that follows me in both realms, feel like you're part of my community. And even if you do choose to just watch me, well, that's your story, not mine. I'm choosing to show up, and I'll keep contributing and gifting to you as much as I can. And then I get beautiful women like all of you. I mean, I don't need all those other people. I got you lot. And I've got beautiful women like Edwina in my life. So there's this small group of people that really are your connectors. And then that circle just gets bigger and wider. And the ones that you probably really want to make meaningful connections with are those inner circle ones. So, but don't forget the outers, because not everybody knows how to do it.
Yeah. But it's an invitation to just say good morning.
Yeah, I love that.
These little, because it helps us overcome that loneliness as well. It just takes one little comment. Doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, and contribute. You said it before, but if you want meaningful conversation and connection, it's not one way.
Yep.
It's a two-way thing. So communication is the response you get. If you're getting lonely and feeling lonely, what is the communication you're exuding? Yep. If you want to feel connected and you feel loved, what is the communication you're exuding? So don't forget that communication is the response you get.
Yeah, it was one of the most beautiful little summaries that Johann Hari gave in that book, Lost Connections, was having suffered with depression for years. He worked out that the quickest way out of it was to work out, how can I help somebody else? How can I just listen to somebody else, or connect, or pick up the phone, or it's a being in connection to somebody else was his fastest path out of it. So
I would recommend that highly. Whenever I feel down, I might have a moment, or I might put a quote up onto my social media page just to feed me. Yeah. And then I'll tag someone that I love in it, or I'll send it to them and go, I was thinking of you. Yeah. That's how I try and get myself out of any funks that I get into. And I do go there. Yeah. So I just don't like being there. So I'll try and, and my grandmother always said, if you're never sure what to do, serve.
Yeah. I'm going to finish on that because it's absolutely exactly perfect. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. And we'll see you again tomorrow. All right, that's it from us. Bye for now.